You ever set up something so carefully with so much attention to detail that it starts to feel like a metaphor for your whole life? That's what this was. A cabin in the Appalachian Hills, candlelight flickering across a dinner table for two, the air thick with smoke and hope. It was supposed to be a surprise, quiet, in asterisk mate, a return to something simple. Ashley and I had been through a rough stretch, but this was my olive branch. Our 10-year anniversary deserved that much. I got there early, hours before she was supposed to arrive. I strung lights across the deck, laid out a tablecloth we hadn't used since our first year together, and even went so far as to re-download our old shared playlist from the early days of Spotify. Better Together by Jack Johnson played softly on loop, echoing through the walls of a place that smelled like pine and fresh starts. I'd picked up takeout from her favorite Thai place, the one with the handwritten thank you notes stapled to every bag, and made sure the wine was the same vintage from our wedding night. But the longer I waited, the more that optimism curdled into dread. At first, I told myself she got caught in traffic. Atlanta on a Friday? Made sense. Then maybe she forgot to charge her phone. By 8:30 p.m., I was pacing, checking for bars of signal and rereading my last message. Cabin's perfect. You'll love it. Be safe, okay? Left on read. The timestamp glared like a wound. I refreshed Instagram, not really looking for anything. Just trying to fill the silence. But one flick through a stranger's story changed everything. The account belonged to someone I didn't know, some guy with a handle like @ChrisLiveATL, clearly the kind who documented every night out. And there, in the middle of one of his shaky rooftop videos, was my wife. Ashley. Black cocktail dress. Red heels. Hair curled like it was date night. She was laughing, glass in hand, her voice bright and familiar even over the bad audio. The camera caught her mid-smile, turning toward a man whose hand hovered just above her hip. He leaned in. She didn't pull away. I froze. You ever get hit with so many feelings at once that your body just stops? I stared at the screen, thumb still hovering over the next story like I couldn't believe what I just seen. For a moment, I actually convinced myself it might not be her. Maybe it was someone who just looked like her. But no, her necklace. The tiny gold T pendant I gave her 3 Christmases ago. It was there, glittering beneath the string lights of a rooftop bar. I sat down. Hard. The playlist had looped around again, Come Away With Me, this time, Norah Jones crooning like a ghost in the corner. I let the food go cold, the candles burn low. Each flicker of light felt like a taunt. By 10:40 p.m. I tried calling her 6 times. Texted her double that. Nothing. No, I'm sorry, no running late, no emoji. Just radio silence. That's when I stopped hoping. She finally arrived at 11:13 p.m. I heard the tires on gravel before I saw the headlights. My heart did this weird thing, part panic, part relief, part something I still can't name. The front door creaked open slowly like she didn't want to be heard. I stayed in the dining room, unmoved, still dressed like it mattered. Ashley stepped in, laughing softly at something I wasn't invited to hear. She kicked off her heels with practiced grace and hung a man's leather jacket on the coat rack, definitely not hers, definitely not mine. It was too big, too worn, too male. That's when I saw it. A mark. Bright red and fresh right on the inside of her wrist. It looked like someone had grabbed her hard, a hand-shaped imprint with fingers like shadows. She noticed me staring and pulled her sleeve down instinctively. Oh, she said, finally acknowledging my presence. Hey. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was, like, a nightmare. Her tone was breezy. Detached. She said it like she was commenting on the weather, not walking into what was supposed to be an anniversary getaway. She looked right at the table, the candles, the food. Paused for half a beat. Then she walked past it, past me into the bedroom, her perfume trailing behind like an accusation. She didn't ask about the dinner. Didn't ask why I looked like I'd just watched someone die. She didn't ask anything. Just closed the door behind her with a quiet click, leaving me alone at that table we were supposed to be sharing. I sat there until the candles guttered out completely. Alone with the half-melted wax, a cold plate of pad thai, and a silence that somehow felt louder than the music still playing softly in the background. I Will Follow You Into the Dark came on. A little on the nose, I thought. But the worst part wasn't the silence. It was the way she made it all seem normal. Like I was the one overreacting. Like the jacket hanging by the door didn't smell like someone else. Like her wrist wasn't bruised by a stranger's fingers. Like I hadn't spent hours putting together a night she never planned to attend. That was the beginning of the unraveling. And I didn't even know it yet. The morning after, she acted like nothing had happened. Sunlight poured into the cabin's kitchen, illuminating the very table she ignored the night before. I stood there, pouring black coffee into 2 mugs, wondering if this was all some elaborate gaslight. She shuffled out of the bedroom, hair tousled, face scrubbed free of makeup, and mumbled a casual morning like she hadn't just walked in hours late wearing another man's jacket. "You want toast or eggs?" I asked, forcing something like normalcy into my voice. She shrugged. "Toast's fine." That was it. No mention of the missed anniversary dinner. No explanation for the red imprint that was now faintly bruising her wrist. She didn't even say sorry. I watched her as she sat down and scrolled through her phone. Thumb flicking. Calm. Like she hadn't shattered something the night before. That moment, sitting across from her, our coffee cooling between us, I started putting together the puzzle pieces I'd ignored. It was as if the silence in that cabin was loud enough to rattle loose every suppressed suspicion I'd brushed aside over the past year. There was the night 3 months ago when she didn't come home. Said she stayed at a friend's. Jules needed someone to talk to, she'd explained, face flushed, eyes darting like she was reciting from a script she hadn't memorized well enough. I'd believed her. Because Jules had been going through a breakup and Ashley was always the nurturing type. Except, I remember how cold her hands were when she finally walked in at 5 a.m. Not drunk. Not tired. Just empty. Then there was that supposed business trip 2 months ago. A 3-day conference in Charlotte. She sent me photos of the view from her hotel, sunsets over skyscrapers, fancy cocktails on marble counters, but not a single selfie. Not one picture of her in them. Just accessories. Hints. As if she was curating a travel blog, not checking in with her husband. I'd asked her to FaceTime. She claimed the Wi-Fi was too spotty. When she got back, her suitcase was half empty and her perfume was different, stronger, muskier, not the vanilla citrus blend she'd worn for years. Said it was a free sample from the hotel. The next time she went out with friends, her phone lit up nonstop while she was getting ready. She kept flipping it face down every time I looked in its direction. When I asked who it was, she said, "Work stuff." "It's nothing." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Even the way she hugged me had changed. There used to be a tenderness in her arms like coming home. Now, when we embraced, her hands barely rested on my back. Like she was fulfilling a chore. Her body always leaned slightly away. It wasn't until I sat in that cabin kitchen that all those instances aligned. It felt like watching paint dry for months only to step back and realize it had spelled something on the wall the entire time. She didn't notice me watching her. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She sat there sipping coffee, thumbs typing something quickly, pausing, deleting, typing again. I found myself wondering who was on the other end of that message. Did he know she was here with her husband? Did he know what night it had been? A part of me wanted to ask her directly, bluntly. Who was he? Whose jacket was that? What happened to your wrist? But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Maybe I just wasn't ready to hear her lie to my face again. Instead, I nodded, stood up, and started washing dishes that hadn't been used. The meal untouched. The wine unopened. The anniversary that had passed unnoticed. That night, we drove back home in silence. No music. No small talk. Just the hum of the road beneath our tires and the weight of everything left unsaid. When we got to our house, she kissed me lightly on the cheek, mechanical, practiced, and said she was going to bed early. I stood in the driveway for 10 whole minutes before walking in. The next day, I opened the Notes app on my phone and started a timeline. Not a journal. Not a diary. A list. Dates, phrases, odd behavior. I needed to see it written out. To prove to myself that I hadn't imagined the slow unraveling. February 18th, overnight at Jules after her breakup. Ashley home at 5:12 a.m., no makeup, cold hands. Claims no cell signal all night. Jules said nothing happened when I asked weeks later. March 7th, Charlotte trip. 3 nights. Sent pics of wine and hotel window. No selfies. Refused to video call. Returned with new perfume and 2 blouses I hadn't seen before. March 22nd, phone started being placed face down. Just work stuff. April 3rd, first time she declined Sunday brunch with my mom, no reason given. Said she just needed a day in. May 12th, business dinner. Late. Came home smelling like cologne I didn't recognize. Brushed it off. New guy at work wears too much. June 6th, started using we in vague ways. We're heading out now, she said one night. She had gone out alone, supposedly. June 20th, missed our anniversary dinner. No calls. No texts. Spotted in stranger's Instagram story. Leather jacket. Red mark on wrist. By the time I finished typing it all out, the pattern was undeniable. It wasn't just in my head. This wasn't paranoia, it was math. Subtraction. The quiet erasure of a marriage. A steady pull towards someone else. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing her. That night, I sat in bed next to her while she slept. Her phone buzzed once, silent but unmistakable. I looked at it. Screen face down. Locked. Part of me wanted to pick it up, find the truth. But I didn't. Because I already knew. This wasn't about catching her in the act. That ship had sailed. It was about accepting what had already happened. The erosion had begun asterisk and long before that rooftop video. Maybe even before Charlotte. Maybe before Jules' imaginary crisis. It had started the moment her eyes stopped lighting up when I walked into a room. When our silences turned from comfortable to strained. When she started dressing up more to go out than she ever did for our date nights. I thought back to that cabin again. How I'd sat there with candles burning and food getting cold, trying to rewind a clock that had already stopped ticking. She stirred beside me in her sleep, murmured something I didn't catch. Rolled over. I turned out the light and lay on my back, staring at the ceiling. And for the first time since we said I do, I realized I was sharing a bed with a stranger. The mind does this thing when it's faced with betrayal. It tries to rewrite reality, to soften the blow. Even with all the signs, even with that Instagram story burned into my retinas, some small, traitorous part of me still wanted to believe I was wrong. That maybe I was misreading it. That maybe there was a context I didn't have. That maybe love was enough to explain away everything. But that part of me died the moment I checked the footage from our doorbell camera. It was almost midnight, 2 weeks before the cabin weekend. Ashley had told me she'd be in Charlotte for a work trip, another one of those no-selfie, spotty Wi-Fi getaways. I remembered it vividly because she'd left me a sticky note with a little heart on it. Don't forget to water the fern. Back Friday. Miss you already. I had believed it then. I'd even texted her a picture of the fern just to be sweet. She hadn't responded until the next morning. That morning, while she slept upstairs after getting in late, I found myself alone with my coffee and that creeping feeling again. Something was off, how she avoided eye contact, how her bags looked unpacked, how her skin smelled faintly of someone else's cologne. I couldn't shake it. I remembered then that I'd installed the camera over the front door a year ago after someone broke into the neighbor's car. I hadn't looked at the footage since. It mostly just captured squirrels, mail deliveries, and the occasional Amazon guy who liked to sing. That morning, though, I opened the app, fingers trembling slightly. The camera archived about 10 days worth of video. I scrolled back to the night of her departure. There it was. Tuesday night, 6:12 p.m. She stepped out, suitcase in hand, gave me a kiss goodbye in the kitchen just minutes earlier. I watched her through the lens of that silent camera, my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, walk out to her car in leggings and a hoodie. Nothing suspicious. I almost clicked away. But then Thursday came. Thursday night, 8:37 p.m. The night she claimed to be in a hotel 2 states away. There she was again on camera. Outside our house. She wasn't alone. She walked into frame from the side street, hand in hand with a man I didn't recognize. Taller than me. Broad-shouldered. Wearing a dark Henley shirt and the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're wanted. Ashley had her arm wrapped around his waist and he had a to-go coffee in his hand. At one point, he handed it to her and she took a sip, smiling. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. They stopped near the porch light. She looked toward the door, our door, but didn't walk up to it. Just stared at it. For a second. Maybe 2. And then she turned away. She didn't use her key. Didn't even pretend to try the handle. Instead, she followed him back down the walkway, laughing at something he said. Like this was a routine. Like this was their place now. I rewound and watched it again. And again. Each time, a piece of me chipped off like frost from a windshield. Her scarf caught my attention, the same beige knit she wore to the cabin. I'd complimented her on it that night. Is that new? I'd asked. She said it was a birthday gift from her sister. A complete lie. She had worn it while walking hand in hand with someone else on our property. I watched her walk away until the camera lost them in the shadows. I sat back in the kitchen chair and stared at nothing for a long time. The coffee had gone cold in my hands. A ringing buzzed in my ears, part disbelief, part clarity. That tiny, desperate hope I'd been nurturing, the hope that maybe I'd misunderstood, maybe there was still a way back, it dissolved completely. She had been here. She wasn't in Charlotte. She wasn't working late or stuck in traffic. She was with him. While I sat in our kitchen alone, microwaving leftovers and texting her goodnight, she had been a few feet away on the sidewalk, wrapped in someone else's arms. You can't unsee something like that. And you can't unknow it either. That night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't even try. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me. Peacefully. Like nothing had happened. How do you share a bed with someone after watching them walk away from your home with another man? You don't. The next morning, I woke up early before her alarm before the sun. I made coffee and sat at the table again, watching the steam rise in quiet spirals. The scarf she wore was hanging from the hook near the door. I couldn't look at it without wanting to scream. When she came downstairs, she smiled at me like everything was fine. Hair pulled up. Minimal makeup. A different perfume today, lighter, citrusy, almost trying too hard to say normal. She made eggs and started humming a song I didn't recognize. When she caught me watching her, she asked, "What?" I shook my head. Nothing. That morning, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I needed something beyond footage. Something I could hold, point to, name. Because the thing about betrayal is, once you know it's there, you start seeing it everywhere. That day, I called in sick to work and waited until she left for the office. I didn't have a plan. Just the need to confirm what my heart already knew. I started with her car. It's weird, the things people forget when they're trying to live double lives. In her glove compartment, beneath napkins and expired insurance cards, I found a visitor parking pass. Hilton Charlotte Executive Park. Not from the week she was supposedly there, but from 3 weeks before when she'd told me she was at her mom's helping her recover from surgery. Her mom, by the way, had been in Florida that whole week, visiting her sister. I remembered because she posted about it on Facebook. The name on the pass wasn't hers. It was someone else's, Tyler M. Preston. Never heard of him. But now I had a name. I checked the trunk next. A pair of extra flats, some loose receipts. Nothing until I found the small black shopping bag tucked behind the spare tire. Inside, a men's cologne bottle. Brand new. Expensive. Still in its box. The same cologne I'd smelled on her 2 weeks ago. The one she claimed belonged to a guy at work who bathed in the stuff. I moved on to her laptop next. It wasn't password protected. Ashley had always insisted we had nothing to hide. I opened her browser and checked the bookmarks. A few weeks ago, she'd saved links to 2 different boutique hotels. One in Asheville. One in Savannah. Both with bookings for 2 adults. One of the tabs was still open. My stomach clenched when I saw the dates. One of them overlapped with our anniversary. She had been planning to be with him then. The night I lit candles, played our playlist, and waited like a fool. I shut the laptop. I couldn't read anymore. The final blow came later, almost by accident. I opened our fridge to grab a bottle of water and saw a half-finished bottle of wine. Dark red. Same label, same year as the one from the Instagram story. She'd told me she didn't like reds anymore. Too bitter, she'd said. Gave her headaches. But there it was. Chilled. Open. Familiar. It was undeniable now. There was no angle left unexplored, no doubt unspoken. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a phase. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a full, separate existence. And I had just stumbled through the doorway of a life I wasn't part of anymore. You don't plan for the moment you finally let go. There's no dramatic music, no epiphany soaked in cinematic light. Sometimes it's just you standing in your own living room, staring at a scarf or a cologne bottle or a half-drunk glass of wine and realizing you're the only one left trying to pretend it's not over. The house was still. Too still. Ashley had left for work that morning like nothing was wrong. She kissed my cheek, sipped her coffee, and reminded me to grab the dry cleaning before Thursday. She was wearing a white blouse I didn't recognize, form-fitting, expensive, maybe even something he'd bought her. I didn't ask. I didn't say anything. Instead, I nodded. I smiled. And then I started packing. It wasn't anger. Not really. I didn't throw anything. Didn't break dishes or punch walls. It was colder than that, measured, methodical. I walked through the house and began labeling boxes with Post-its. Shoes. Bathroom drawer. Desk stuff. One by one, I gathered the fragments of her, of us, and separated them from mine. In the closet, I pulled down a duffel bag she hadn't used in years. Inside were clothes I hadn't seen before, silk camisoles, lingerie, perfume samples. Things she didn't wear around me. Hidden like secrets. I moved to her nightstand. Inside, a paperback romance novel, a pack of gum, and a folded receipt from a boutique store in Asheville. A room upgrade. King suite. Champagne on arrival. 2 bathrobes. I opened her drawer in the bathroom next. Beneath her makeup bag was a man's tie, navy, paisley, not mine. There was also a travel-sized deodorant stick. The scent matched the cologne I'd found in her car. None of it shocked me anymore. I just cataloged it, emotionless, like tagging evidence. The more I uncovered, the more the house began to feel unfamiliar. Alien. Like a stage where a play had just ended. I realized how many things weren't ours anymore, how many items belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. The mug she used to drink from, the one that said, "I'm not a morning person," in cartoon letters. I placed it gently into a box. Her framed photo from college. Her throw blanket. The plants she insisted made the kitchen feel alive. I removed them all. I wasn't trying to erase her. I was just trying to reclaim the space she'd slowly taken over while giving parts of herself to someone else. Each item I packed felt like a funeral rite. Not dramatic. Just final. Around noon, I called my friend Jared, who had a spare bedroom in a condo downtown. He didn't ask questions. Just said, "Come whenever." I didn't explain much. I didn't need to. He knew enough from the silences. By mid-afternoon, the only things left in the house were mine. I sat on the edge of the bed we used to share, now half empty, and looked around at the echo of our life. The framed picture from our anniversary trip to Charleston still sat on the dresser. She had her arm wrapped around my waist, her face turned toward me with a smile that now looked like a mask. I took it down and placed it in the box marked miscellaneous. That evening, I left her a note. Just a few lines. "Everything you need is in the labeled boxes in the garage. I'll be staying with Jared for a while. Please don't contact me until I reach out. I need time. Travis." I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to cry or scream or beg for answers she wasn't willing to give. I just wanted distance. I wanted stillness. I wanted air. Before I walked out, I passed the mirror in the hallway. I barely recognized myself. Pale. Dark circles. A shadow of the man who planned a cabin weekend hoping to salvage 10 years of marriage with Pad Thai and Nora Jones. In the driveway, I paused. The garage door was open. Her boxes lined the wall like memorials. I felt a twinge of guilt, not for leaving, but for how quietly I was doing it. She'd made this choice over time. One decision here. One lie there. A new password on her phone. A lipstick in her purse that I never saw her wear. They were brushstrokes on a canvas I refused to see until it became a portrait of someone I didn't know. I didn't leave to make her hurt. I left because staying had already broken me. Jared's apartment was bare and smelled like takeout and wood cleaner. He cleared a drawer and left clean sheets on the bed. I collapsed into it without unpacking. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The next few days passed in slow, awkward silence. Jared worked late and I kept my phone on silent. Ashley didn't text. Didn't call. Not even a missed FaceTime. Just nothing. Like she'd vanished into whatever world she'd built with whoever he was. I checked the doorbell app once. Just once. She came by on Thursday afternoon. Drove up in her car, paused for a second, then opened the garage and loaded her boxes into the trunk. The camera caught her moving slowly, almost hesitantly, like she was waiting for someone to stop her. She looked up at the front door once, long, like she expected me to walk out. But I wasn't there. She didn't take everything. Left behind a drawer full of cables, a scarf, a book with her name written inside the cover. I wondered if it was intentional. A breadcrumb trail. A silent plea for contact. Or maybe she just forgot. Maybe I didn't matter enough for it to be thorough. Saturday came and I finally left the apartment. Walked through downtown. Got a haircut. Bought groceries I knew I'd actually eat. I didn't check my phone the entire day. Didn't scroll through social media looking for her face. Didn't replay the video from that rooftop story. Something had shifted. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was movement. On Sunday morning, I opened the box I'd labeled important. Inside were my passport, tax documents, a few letters she'd written me in college. One of them was dated exactly 10 years ago. She doodled stars on the corners and ended it with, "I'll always come back to you. No matter what." Funny how people mean things when they say them. And how those same words age like milk. I folded it back up and tucked it under the stack. There wasn't much left to process. Just space. Space where her laughter used to be. Where her perfume lingered. Where I used to feel safe. Now, in the quiet of this new apartment, I listened to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic echoing off buildings. And for once, I didn't miss her. Not the woman I found in the videos. Not the one who came home with another man's jacket. Not the one who left parts of herself scattered like crumbs for someone else to follow. I missed the version of her I thought I knew. And that more than anything else was the final goodbye. It was a Tuesday when she came back. Not with fanfare or apology. No grand gestures. No knock at the door in the rain, dripping mascara and tearful pleas for forgiveness. Just a dull rap on the wood like a neighbor returning a borrowed dish. I had just brewed coffee in Jared's apartment, my new half-home, the kind where nothing was fully mine but everything was more peaceful. The sun was bleeding through the blinds, painting faint shadows on the counter when the knock came. I opened the door expecting maybe a package, maybe someone selling solar panels. Instead, there she was. "Ashley." She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, strands clinging to the curve of her cheek like she'd thrown it up in the car mirror. She wore a pale hoodie, faded jeans, and sneakers I didn't recognize. In one hand, she held a half-empty water bottle. In the other, nothing. No apology. No offering of explanation. Her eyes darted past me for a moment, scanning the small living room, probably taking stock of what was missing. The framed photos. Her throw blanket. The mug she used every morning. The music we used to play. She didn't step inside. "Hey," she said, her voice cracked like it hadn't been used all day. I left a sweater. The green one. I think it's in the laundry basket or maybe in the closet." She said it like we were casual exes. Like we'd broken up over coffee and mutual disinterest. Like I hadn't watched her slip away piece by piece over the past year. I nodded slowly and stepped aside, pointing to a cardboard box near the door. I'd labeled it weeks ago, miscellaneous, closet. It was one of the few I hadn't taped shut because, honestly, I wasn't sure if she'd bother to come back for the scraps. The sweater was on top. Right where she left it. She reached into the box and paused, fingers grazing the fabric, her brow furrowing like the texture had triggered some unwanted memory. She lifted it out carefully like it might break. "That's it," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Didn't mean to bother you." I said nothing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. I just wasn't. There was nothing left to feel. She could have told me she needed the sweater for a date that night, and I think I still would have just nodded. As she turned to leave, she hesitated. One foot out the door, the other still grounded. Her eyes flicked around the apartment again, pausing this time, really pausing. She noticed. The framed picture of us hiking in Sedona gone. The vinyl records we used to play on Sunday mornings, not in the crate by the couch. Even her favorite candle, the one she bought from a street vendor on impulse, no longer sat on the windowsill. The realization hit her like a whisper, not a punch. Soft but undeniable. Everything was gone. She took a small step back in and said, "It looks different." "Yeah," I said, not offering more. She nodded, more to herself than to me. There were no questions. "No, how have you been?" "No, why didn't you answer my texts?" Just silence between two people who had exhausted all their words. And then she left. No hug. No final glance. Just a door closing gently behind her, leaving nothing but the faint scent of her shampoo in the air. The oddest part? I didn't feel relief or heartbreak. I didn't feel much at all. Just this hollow understanding that whatever we'd had was long gone and she'd known it before I did. I sat down on the couch afterward, the silence loud again like it always was now. I stared at the empty mug in my hand, the one I used now instead of hers, and thought back to the last time she'd said, "I love you." I couldn't place it. Maybe it was during a text months ago. Maybe it was a routine, "love you too," before she left for work. But the weight behind those words, when had that vanished? It bothered me that I couldn't remember. 2 days passed without a word from her. Then, Thursday night, I heard another knock. I didn't rush to the door. Didn't even stand right away. I just stared at it for a moment. Something told me it would be her again. And something deeper told me this time would be different. When I opened it, she stood there, no hoodie, no makeup, just Ashley. Barefaced, eyes red-rimmed, holding a folded piece of paper. "I won't stay," she said quietly, like she already knew I wouldn't invite her in. I wrote something. I didn't want to text it. She placed the paper on the counter by the door, then looked up at me. "I'm not here to make excuses," she said. "Or to ask for anything. I just needed to say what I should have said a long time ago." Her voice didn't tremble. It was the most steady she'd sounded in months. She didn't wait for a reply. Just turned and walked back down the hallway without looking back. I closed the door and stared at the folded paper like it was ticking. Eventually, I opened it. Her handwriting was small, neat, familiar. "Travis? I know there's nothing I can say that makes this better. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this. But if you are, thank you. Thank you for being good. For being steady. For being kind when I didn't deserve it. I never set out to hurt you. I didn't plan any of this. But somewhere along the line, I stopped recognizing myself, and instead of telling you, I ran. And then I kept running. You were always present. Always safe. I used to think that made you boring. I was wrong. That made you rare. And I let distance grow between us because it was easier than asking for help. What I did was selfish. What I let happen, what I chose to continue letting happen, was cowardice. I can't take it back, and I won't insult you by trying. But I need you to know it wasn't about him. Not really. It was about me. You deserve better. I hope you find it. Ash. I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even flinch. Because it was all true. And somehow seeing it spelled out in ink gave a strange sense of closure. Like I wasn't crazy. Like I hadn't been imagining the shift in her voice, the new perfume, the way she started hugging me with one arm instead of two. Still, I didn't reach out. Didn't text. Didn't call. I folded the letter and slid it into the back of a drawer. I didn't save it for nostalgia. I saved it because sometimes even the worst truths deserve to be remembered. A week passed. No new knocks. No messages. Just quiet. Then, on a Sunday morning, my phone buzzed. One text. I don't expect a reply. I just wanted to say goodbye the right way. If you're willing, I'll be at the coffee shop near the park at 10. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I left the apartment. She was already there when I arrived, sitting outside, hands wrapped around a cup that had long gone cold. She looked different this time. Not tired. Not guarded. Just done. In a way that I recognized. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded and sat down. There wasn't a script this time. She didn't cry. Didn't try to explain away the details. I didn't come to get anything back, she said. I know that's gone. I just wanted to tell you the truth, not to win you over, but because you deserve it. I didn't interrupt. She talked about the disconnection, how it crept in slowly. How she started feeling like she wasn't seen even though she knew I was trying. How easy it was to respond to someone else's attention. How shame turned into secrecy. How she thought about stopping. Tried even. But didn't. It wasn't about him, she said. He was just there. What I wanted, what I didn't know how to ask you for, was something I couldn't even name. I looked at her then, and for the first time I didn't see my wife. I saw a woman I used to love who made a series of choices that pulled her further from who she wanted to be. I'm sorry, she said. Not because I lost you, but because I broke something that mattered. I stood up and left without a word. Some truths don't need a response. They just need a place to land. Within the month, I moved into a studio near the coast. It was small. Sparse. But it was mine. There were no photos on the walls. No shared playlists. No half-empty wine bottles waiting to be explained. Just a bed, a chair, and a view of the ocean. I didn't open the drawer with her letter again. I didn't need to. Closure wasn't a moment. It was the quiet that came afterward. The kind that didn't ache. Every morning, I brewed black coffee and sat by the window as the sky turned from steel gray to soft blue. The waves didn't care about what had happened. They just came and went like breath. I no longer scrolled social media looking for her face. I stopped replaying old conversations, stopped wondering who she might be with now. It didn't matter. What we were had already ended long before I accepted it. And in that stillness, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything made sense, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for it to.